Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I've got my buddy Brandon Richards here today. We're going to be talking about his fearless pursuit of freedom, right? At the end of the day, we all started these businesses to have something more in our life. For a lot of folks, it was more money. Like we wanted more money, but the money ultimately buys freedom, which is what we really want. So money is just a kind of tool to allow you to live the life that you want to live. And Brandon used to operate in my market here in the DFW market and became a little bit of a nomad, moved to Arizona, about to move to Alaska. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Really, really cool stuff. But I've kind of seen his growth over the years. And, he's one of those guys that was working, not that he doesn't work hard now, but worked really hard. But you get to a point in your career, some of us do, where you're like, what is this all for if you don't have the freedoms and the things that you want in your life? And so real estate is an amazing vehicle that can do that for you, or like I say, it can suck you in to the hustle zone, and you might never leave. And so we're going to talk about how to get more freedom in your life today. So Brandon, great to see you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. What's this, number 3 now? Something like that?
Well, it's been a while, right?
Yeah.
You were clearly on the Flip Nerd podcast a long time ago. I was on your show once or twice.
Twice now, yeah.
Twice. Okay. That's been a little while.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's my show, so I get to pick who I want to talk to.
Yeah, right.
So awesome, man. Hey, before you jump in, tell us your backstory a little bit. So I knew you when you were slinging houses in DFW, just like me, and your life has evolved. All of ours have, right? But tell us the story of how you got to where you are today, and stop before you talk about the fact that you're getting ready to move to Alaska, which is really cool. But yeah.
Man, in the beginning, so you just rewind time. I was living in Flagstaff. I had a carpet cleaning franchise that I was running by myself. And, on paper, I felt like I was making money, but it was me working day in and day out. And I just was thinking, well, what's next? And so I finally hired some people. And, everybody goes on the internet and, searches, what's the next big thing? And so you run across real estate almost always inevitably. And, well, shoot, I don't have any money. I'm just a carpet guy. So what do? You get into wholesaling. And, being that, at the time, because this is like 10 years ago, wholesaling was a thing, but it wasn't as hot as it is right now. And so I didn't know how to get into it. So I got my real estate license. Went to Century 21, and very, very quickly I was like, oh, this is not how you get into real estate, at least the real estate I wanted to be into. And so then I switched brokerages to a more investor savvy brokerage, learned a bunch of stuff there, did my first wholesale, first flip, and kind of just evolved over the years into buying apartments, storage, tons of flips, which if we touch on, I don't ever want to do again, but I end up buying a couple a year. And we left DFW, came out here, started a brokerage, kept up with the wholesaling, started wholesaling some bigger commercial stuff, hotel, restaurants, mobile home parks. And now I like to say I'm concentrating on land, but in reality, I do land and manufactured homes primarily. That's my main business. And I got that going pretty decently with my team of VAs. So then a buddy of mine, we were like, well, what's next? Again, the same buddy we were both getting in the real estate with. And like, let's go buy some businesses. So he was gun-ho on the restaurant business. So I brokered a restaurant for him. So he's enjoying that thing sometimes. And then to me, it was, I didn't want a brick and mortar. I wanted something that was not location dependent, but I didn't know what that was. So I just happened to be at a real estate networking event, a software broker, and I ended up in the same airport. And one thing led to another. I bought a software company back last April called Deal Manager Pro, and I'm loving it. I mean, it gives me a little bit of new headache, I should say, because being in the real estate world, a lot of those marketing niches are vastly different. So I'm having to learn a lot of that, as well as some coding and understanding what an API is and a webhook is. And so
Yeah.
it's given me something to do, but more importantly, it gives me freedom of location, so I can take this business anywhere in the world and still do what I love. And
Yeah.
so
That's
that's where I
awesome.
am now. Yeah.
So let's kind of break some of that down a little bit. I want to go back to like when you were doing carpet cleaning. You very
Mhm.
much were, I assume, owner operator. Like you're
Yep.
doing,
$100%.
you bought a job, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of people in real estate end up that way too. And so, talk about your movement into. Let's not talk about from carpet cleaning to real estate because I get
Mhm.
that, but moving around inside of real estate, like
Yeah.
agent to investor to from houses to more of a developer. Let's just talk about like those decisions in your mind. Like sometimes it's like, hey, in the market, this feels like it's really hard.
Yeah.
So as real estate investors, we often think the grass is greener. Like we see a shiny object, like, oh, I need to get into commercial. That's what I need, right? And
Right.
so, but talk about because I want folks that are listening to this to kind of hear the lessons here of um, why that made sense and maybe even a little bit of um, your perspective on did what you wanted to get out of it, did it solve that?
Mhm.
And I guess maybe if you have any regrets about if you had just stayed focused on one thing, because I think sometimes people make moves because it seems like that's easier, but
Yeah.
nothing that's worthwhile is easy, as
Right.
you know. And there's pros and cons, at least with everything. But just talk about kind of making those moves, and in the vein of like freedom, which is what you ultimately wanted, is
Right.
financially free, time free. So maybe just kind of go back and let's analyze that a little bit.
Yeah. In the beginning, I joined a networking group called Financial Friends, and I was able to connect with a lot of people. But I remember I won an auction to go to a fellow investor's office and learn his business. He had from outside looking in, a pretty healthy business. But when I toured his office, he at the time had 47 employees. And I just remember thinking there was two things that really caught my mind or caught my attention and stuck in my mind was he had a property management company that wasn't profitable until he had more than 100 units under management. So I was like, nope, property management not for me. But moreover, because he had so many employees and so many flips and so many projects going on, it wasn't until like day 17 or 19th of the month that he would break even. His monthly expenses were so high, it took him almost 3 weeks to break even. And right there and then, I was like, I never ever want to go down that hole. And so I started learning about virtual assistants, VAs. And so I stumbled through that in my first couple of years. Built a team in the Philippines that was doing all my. I had them doing everything from scheduling my direct mail marketing, my cold calling, my RVM, my mass texting, all of it. And then in DFW, as you know, that was roughly what 2018. Dude, the competition was crazy. The wholesaling game was very, very difficult, and it became more of a headache than I wanted. So I dialed back a little bit, and I started getting more into flips. Um, and then I realized pretty quickly that flips isn't what I want to do. I mean, at the end of it, you pull up your net sheet and you're like, oh, I'm getting 32,000 back or 47,000 back. But if you actually track your numbers on an Excel through the entire project, you're like, well, I think I made like $6,000 maybe in the past three,
Why
4 months.
why is that? Because of overhead and marketing expense, stuff like that. Is that what you're?
The what ifs, the oh shit moments. You pull out a vanity in the bathroom and some drywall comes with it, and you're like, oh, well, there's mold. Crap, now that wall's got to come down. Or you're pulling up some tile and you realize that it had asbestos backing underneath the vinyl floor underneath. And there's all these things that inevitably come up. And so I learned pretty quickly to over budget my rehab. But even then, if I added 5, 10, 15,000, I would still have projects go over. And so if you are getting private money or hard money and you got a 70% of ARV plus rehab funds, and even if you got 100% financing, if that bad boy goes over, it starts digging into your profits super quick. And every dollar is lost profit at that point. So it became more than I wanted. Too much headache, too much hassle, and I certainly wasn't doing a lot of the things I wanted to be doing. Um, in my adult years, I wanted to be doing much more traveling and not so much. The girls got home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We did the whole playtime, eat dinner, and then I get on computer till 2 in the morning. It was not healthy, and I hated every moment of it. And so,
Yeah.
one thing I regret not doing in the beginning, which I'm doing now, is in the land is notes. I wish I would have done notes when I first learned about them in the beginning. It's To me, it's more passive aside from creating it and all the transactional, time and cost. It's the most passive form of income outside of private lending. So I learned that I didn't like rentals pretty quickly. I had some duplexes, apartments, and as a smaller portfolio owner, I was self-managing, and it was an absolute nightmare. I certainly chose the wrong areas for one, but I realized that I just didn't want it. If like I had somebody burn my dumpster one time because a drug deal went bad in one of the units. I'm like, what the hell is going on around here? I just
Yeah.
so,
You never
anyways,
had, I had somebody burn my house down the day they were getting evicted.
I remember that post. Yeah,
So yeah,
that's horrible.
yeah.
Yeah,
That was only one of several fires I've had, but
yeah. So I mean, I guess
yeah,
more of the story.
it's not passive and it's
Uh,
not, but yeah,
yeah. I mean, more of the story is as the years went on, I was like, well, I certainly have squirrel mind. I get the shiny object syndrome, but I was always trying to look for the next, not the next thing, but the one niche that could really stick to because it gave me the time freedom I wanted. And
yeah,
that's why, after all these years of flipping and wholesaling, that land is my numero uno. We're buying in 3 states right now, and manufactured homes because there's 6 contractors. There's no what ifs. There's no oh shits. It's 6 contractors. It's a very dialed in process, and the budget's the exact same every single time. And it's just about the most easy form of development there is.
yeah. I mean, this is like evolution, right? And everybody's
Yeah.
different. Like there's people that love rehabbing and there's people that tolerate rentals or so everybody's path is a little bit different, but this is like you touch some hot stoves and you realized don't touch that again
Right.
or it hurts when I do that and so stop doing that, right? I mean that's kind of I think the problem with real estate. I was just talking to I won't drop any names here, but a good friend of mine that everybody listening would know. Last week we were at an event together, and we were just talking about. There was another guy there that's in a has a business that's outside of real estate, and it's like a very simple business. He's making a ton of money. He's not over promising. He sells, it kind of teaches people how to get into bookkeeping, basically. And it's like
Mhm.
all these people are getting into it, and their goal is to make 50 or $100,000 a year. Their goal is to start a job, really.
Right.
But the promise is very simple, and he's selling it like hotcakes. On
Yeah.
the real estate, we were kind of comparing it because he's also a real estate coach, and we were comparing it to real estate. Like everybody thinks they want to buy it and they're going to get rich overnight,
Mhm.
you know. And but nobody wants not I want to say nobody, but most people don't want to do the work. They just think, oh, if I just pay for this thing, then everything the seas part and I'm going to get rich here. It's like no, you still have to do the work. You're
Yeah.
going to get punched in the face a bunch, right? And so, but that's how evolution works: is you try something and you learn from it. And I think I talk a lot about this like you do too, like this fail forward, like failure is not final. It's a stepping stone to success, right? But I think that's how real estate is and probably everything. You have to like try something, and if it doesn't work, then do it differently next time and do it differently, and then until you find your groove. And that's
Right.
essentially what you've done, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying anyways. I'm
Yeah.
always experimenting with new things,
Would it be
and
easy to give up and say, I'm not doing any of this. I'm just going to go back and get a job, or I'm just going to
oh
settle for,
yeah.
not living the life I want and then sit there and have regrets for the rest of your life or whatever. But
Right. I mean, you're building like multiple companies at once. You're building a marketing company. You're building an acquisitions and disposition leg of the same company. And even if you have like a full on done for you marketing thing um, like Investor Machine, you still got to put in a ton of work. You're still making sure you're doing the calls, you're building the rapport with sellers, you're getting the contracts, you're evaluating the rehab, you're sending out people to go take pictures and put lock boxes. Like it's not an easy thing. You just got to figure out what you want to do. Choose your heart, as they say.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about, then you're rolling out a CRM
Yep.
that helps other real estate investors. And it's interesting because you and I are not that different in the terms that we have service businesses now after being a real estate investor. And
Mhm.
I could I could name 100 people that are in that vein in our industry, people that you would know too. And it's like after I've been in the business for 16 years now, and you just inevitably start to find something. You built this, and the stuff that I built was stuff that I needed for
Right.
myself. But it's like I know other people need this too.
Hmm.
And so sometimes people give service providers or coaches or whatever like bullshit. By the way, there's some bullshit coaches out there that have no business coaching.
Right. Right.
But for those that have been around for a long time, you realize like, hey, partly I want to give back, partly I want to build a business that allows me to live the life I want to live. And partly is like, I've got a lot of knowledge in here from touching a whole bunch of hot stoves that I need to share with people so they don't touch as many as I did and they can climb the learning curve faster.
Yeah.
And so inevitably you end up finding your way into businesses that serve others that you wish you had back when you were first starting or coming up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For me in the beginning, I was an Excel sheet guy. I was I don't even know how to design a fancy Excel sheet. I mean, I would literally just plug and play. I'd put name, address, subject, mailing address, phone number, and email. And it's just it's organized, but it's not organized. And there's really no follow up unless you set some sort of if this then that sequence, and it pumps into your calendar, and then you move into Podio, and you got some of the automations and some of the built out stuff, which we ended up doing. But there wasn't, but you still had to do everything else on your own. You still had to go find other third party products to really
Right.
put the whole system together. And so when this software company essentially fell in my lap, I was like, dude, this is kind of like the answer to what I needed in the beginning. And it's not a done for you type of deal, but it really helps you stay in the game. Because I like to say the what's the phrase? And I'm having a brain fart now. The gold is in the follow up, or wherever the phrase is.
Yeah.
A lot of my biggest and best deals were from not just a couple weeks of follow up, not even a few months, but years of follow up. And if you don't have some sort of system that's telling you, say, hey, dingbat, call Miss Smith because she told you to call here in April 16 months ago. And a lot of those phone calls have gotten me, well, I mean, like the mobile home park that I told you I wholesale, it took me 3 years of follow up. I mean, that was my biggest and most fun deal. I mean, it was really fun to do that deal. And she said, basically at the closing table, that she accepted our offer, although $250,000 lower than the others, because I was the guy calling here every couple months for 3 years, and I was just a normal dude and not some, asshole, I guess. I'm calling out of the blue.
Yeah. Not everybody's like this. I honestly, I like to buy, like, sometimes I'll buy stuff that I don't need because I appreciated the effort in the sales process.
Mhm.
I mean, that doesn't make sense to sell a major
Yeah.
asset like a mobile home park, but not everybody's like this. But I think a lot of people appreciate the attention they got. Like they appreciate that you really want it. I mean, you've proven that you're going to do what you say. You wouldn't be around if you weren't otherwise. And I think we all have experienced businesses that I give this example out at our ranch. We're doing a bunch of landscaping, and I called who I thought was the biggest. This is it's not too far from Tyler, Texas, and so
Mhm.
the biggest landscape company I could find in Tyler that had the most clout, the highest ratings, or whatever. Whatever. One reason I picked them, and the owner himself was coming. I don't know how big. It's a company with a bunch of wrapped vehicles, so big enough to have a team.
Mhm.
But the owner's actually going to come out to this one, and I had to follow up 3 or 4 times to get him there. And then he spent like an hour bidding. He's got drones out, flying it around, doing measurements with drones. I don't know how any of that shit works.
Mhm.
Never heard from the guy again. And I even followed up like 2 weeks later. I mean, this is like a six-figure landscaping job, and
Yeah.
I don't know what their profit margins are, but this is a bigger than usual job for them for sure. And I followed up. I'm like, oh, sorry, he's on vacation this week. I'm going to have him follow up on Monday. Never heard from him again.
Where's his team
And
at, you know?
what's that?
So where's his team at handling it when he's on vacation?
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, it's crazy how many people are terrible at answering the phone the first time and
Yep.
doing any sort of follow up. And I say it's getting to a point now where anybody that's watching the show regularly is like, they hear me say this on every show, is most businesses could double their profit easily, if not more, just by being better at lead intake and follow up. That's it.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
spending another dollar on anything at all, just doing better at the things you've already got.
right. Yeah, I mean, if you've got a decent pipeline of leads over the past 6, 9 months, following up with that pipeline over the next following couple of months, you could turn off the direct mail, the cold calling machine, and still end the year pretty decently as long as your follow up is sufficient. And
Yeah.
so that's one of our things with Deal Manager is we're integrating automated follow up processes. So if when Miss Smith says, "Hey, I'm not ready to sell right now," but in April give me a call, shoot me a message, an email, whatever it is. I don't have to think about it. The system auto does it for me. That way, when I see a random message from Miss Smith saying thank you for the follow up, I'm like, oh, shoot, glad it did it for me. And so we're getting that rock and
Yeah.
rolling. And then, tons of other cool things in there as well.
Yeah. And in the real estate space, let's be honest, whether it's a junky little house and somebody's distressed,
Yep.
or it's a big property, like a mobile home park or a big piece of land or something where people they're apprehensive to let go. Like in their mind, they're like, I probably need to sell it. But they've been distressed or thinking about it for years. And real estate investors act like if it doesn't happen today, it's not going to happen. It's like, no, they've been thinking about this for a long time. And the only way you're going to continue, the only way you're going to get those deals like systematically is if you tap on their shoulder like constantly, right? You just got to keep tapping, like, don't forget me, don't forget me. I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
And over time, they're laying in bed at night thinking about it. They're like their whole life that keeps popping into their head. And you want to be that person that's popping into their head
Right.
to say, okay, yeah, I probably need to do it this month or this year or whatever. And as they're thinking about doing it, they're seeing a picture of Brandon Richards on there, whoever you are,
Mhm.
that they're like, this is the person I'm going to work with ultimately. And they just are coming to terms with it so that when they pick up that phone for the last time, they're like, I'm ready to go and you're the guy. And from their side, they probably make that decision before they contact you. But if you're not following up with them, they're not thinking of you. They're thinking of
Yeah.
somebody else.
Yeah. It actually just reminded me of something I want to do in Deal Manager. So one of the things that we started doing about, I don't know, 3, 4 months ago is every single phone call that my VAs made that had a substantive conversation, whatever the word is. We had a good conversation. We submitted an offer, verbally or written, and they didn't accept it. We send out a thank you postcard immediately. So within 6 to 9 days, they're getting a postcard thanking them for the conversation, and
Yeah.
it just made I'm writing notes because now I'm going to talk to my direct mail guy, and I want to have that automated in Deal Manager. So as soon as that conversation is done, it shoots it out.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. We used to, when we were doing a lot of volume, single family, my acquisitions people would literally have a box of thank you cards with them.
Yeah,
By the time the day was over, they had, and literally we had them like, stamps on them already. They had to just write it out and drop it in the mail.
right.
But if you do it, you do it. It's your business. You do it how you want. But we always
Yeah.
tried to like, first off, add a business card. Well, it might be challenging if you're doing it through automation, but add a business card in there because some of these houses we go into, the folks don't know where their car keys or maybe their
Mhm.
teeth are at, let alone their
Yeah.
business card
Yeah.
you gave them. But it's also to kind of put something personal in there, like you know, hope your mom gets well or whatever, like something that makes it sound like this person is thoughtful.
Right. And that's why I take thorough notes on the conversation
Yeah.
because the idea of that first phone call is to gain some sort of trust and build some sort of rapport. And so that
Absolutely.
includes taking notes. So that way, when you do send that personalized letter or postcard, it's really personalized versus just some handwritten font on there. Just thank you. It
Yeah.
goes a long ways. Those old
No,
school
no,
tactics work
no
well.
doubt. No doubt. So you're doing all this stuff, you're figuring out what you don't want to do and a little bit more what you do want to do. And now you're moving to Alaska.
Yeah.
Uh, that is amazing, dude. So getting a little bit off the grid. By the way, you're a pilot too, so you're like, you're getting off the grid, right?
Well, I'm trying. So we'll stay somewhere near a major metro just so I can continue doing some business. And but the idea is that we'll have a coastal off-grid cabin, and then an inner Alaskan off-grid, last frontier cabin that you can only snow machine or fly into. Same deal for the coastal one; you can only boat or fly into.
Wow.
Um, but really, it's just these are all things I dreamt about as a kid. Like I wanted to go to Alaska when I was a kid. I wanted to fly as a kid. I wanted the dirt bike as a kid. And now me and my buddies, we dirt bike around the whole world. We all have pilot's license. We fly around, just do random stuff. And I always want to live in Alaska. So Both my kids have moved out. They're 18, 19 now. And I'm like, dude, there's no better time than now while I'm still young and I don't have too many ailments, to go out there and really explore the last frontier. That's just been a dream of mine since I was a young lad. So it's just been something I always wanted to do. And I've never lived near the ocean. Dude, every time my wife and I go to the ocean, dude, we're just like, you don't think about work anymore. You just explore and enjoy nature, and that's just what we want to do. And a lot of these moves we've made in the past years have allowed that, and that primarily the land notes and now the software business is allowing us to go out there and not work 6, 7 days a week. We're going to be able to work 3, 4, 5 days a week, spend 3, 4 days exploring Alaska. And that's why we're moving out.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all for, right? You get to a point that you're like, why are we doing this? Especially when I think when my son's 17, he's going to be done with high school this year, and and we only have one kid, so you start thinking about like, what is this all for? I'm 50,
Yeah.
so still young, but you're like, there's a runway here, and what am I going to do with the rest of it?
Yeah.
And so it's really important. I'm excited for you guys to go explore that. And by the way, you could always come back, right? Like if you hate it, you're like, you're not stuck there.
Yeah. I mean, I anticipate
feeling
the
you won't
winters
hate it.
being right. I anticipate the winters being pretty difficult. We both love the cold. We love the snow. We love everything about the winter. That's why we moved to Flagstaff. Last year we got 180 inches of snow in Flagstaff, and we were just we were loving it. We're peas in a pod, and we were just like we go walk around the snow when everybody else is trying to bundle up. We just go out and walk in the snow. So I don't think the cold and the snow is going to be bothersome. The long, dark days are probably going to be the issue there. And so we're working on probably getting a place in Costa Rica for the winters, and we'll just hang out in the coastal regions of Costa Rica in the winters and head back on up to Alaska in the summers and enjoy the beauty then.
There you go, man. That's awesome. So, Brandon, if folks tell us how folks can connect with you. You've got your podcast, you've got your Deal Manager CRM. Like, give us a couple links here where folks can go learn more about you.
Well, CRM you can find at dealmanagerpro.com. I can be found on any social media platform. You can just search my name or Deal Manager Pro or the OPF Group, which is our investment firm. The podcast is the Fearless Pursuit of Freedom podcast. That's on everything: YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, everything. Or you just shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer any questions. Brandon at dealmanagerpro.com.
Awesome, man. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Good to have you on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and good luck with everything. Hopefully our paths will cross here soon before you take off to Alaska.
Yeah, we'll head out to Dallas soon.
Yeah, awesome, everybody. Yeah, if you want more freedom in your life, you got to follow folks that are kind of doing some of these things, right? So I encourage you to go learn more about Brandon and what he's got going on, and hopefully this inspired you a little bit to, if you feel like you're stuck in the monotony a little bit, to make sure you get a little more freedom in your life. So appreciate everybody. We'll see you on the next show. Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.